What up, though? I am Jay the Gentleman. That's at JAI the Gentleman on IG and Facebook. And this is a new episode of Dear Black Gay Men Live. It's our short, bullshit-free step out of our comfort zone to talk everything important in Black gay culture. This is an episode that I'm hoping that you'll stick with us from beginning to end. I don't mind talking about sex because I believe sex is an analogy for life. Sex is a big deal, and I believe that when we can put life in sexual terms, all of us can participate in the conversation. But this conversation, I think, is even more important, and I'm excited to have it. Toxic is a buzzword that it seems like all the girls throw at everything that's inconvenient. That's what somebody said in a pre-show. Relationships can be toxic. People can be toxic. Memories, dick, ass, all these things. Masculinity can be toxic. And today, my guest is going to help us break down all of it. He is the founder and lead counselor at Beyond Living. He is our resident mental health professional and one of my good Judies. Hakim Asadi joins me for Toxic Explained. Now, let's get into the episode. Hakim, are you there? Rakai, you might need to add him to the stream. I can't see you. There you are, Hakim. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Unbelievable. How has life been treating you this summer?
Life has been good. It's been enjoyable. I'll say that way. Like I just been experiencing joy with intention.
Okay, you're gonna have to unpack that one for me. Joy with intention.
Just being intentional about being around people that bring me joy, doing the things that bring me joy, and having fun. I think that has been the theme and the goal for this summer. Yeah.
Okay. So at the top of the show, I like to talk about things that have come up on the show. I want to get your take on a couple topics. Can you go with me for a second?
Sure.
Okay, so I posted on the podcast, it was an episode that was called How to Ask a Guy on a Date. I gave the three steps to asking someone on a date. And then I had a date and he didn't follow any of the steps. I think that we have to like man all the way up and be courageous and make some bold moves, like saying, I want to take you out on a date. Even saying that is a big deal, apparently, because he couldn't bring himself to say those words. Why is it so hard for men to take the lead in this new culture of dating?
I don't know if it's a new culture in dating. I think, well, actually it is a new culture. I think one, fear is my first response. I think people are afraid to have that conversation because so often we're used to texting and Instagram messaging. And I think a lot of time we're not used to talking on the phone. So folks don't talk, right? So I wonder if let me take you out on a date is different from like in person, having a conversation, meeting you in Kroger's, the Publix or whatever, versus shooting a shot in your DM or liking a bunch of your pictures, waiting for you to say something. And then
I hate that. I hate anything that is left ambiguous when it comes to dating. I would prefer you to just say, I want to take you out.
But I think the concern is fear of rejection. Right. So if it's fear, if that fear is so great, then I'm going to avoid it. I'm not going to do it. And I'll miss out on all the things that I want to actually experience because fear has made a decision for me.
So you are the mental health expert. So how do we achieve anything in life or love or relationship if fear is so crippling?
At a certain point, you just do it. At a certain point, you do small steps that might help build the confidence to move through or the courage to move through that fear. I say all the time, literally shooting your shot is an act of courage. You don't know what that person it could be your Instagram crush. They have probably thousands of followers. They may never read it, but you shooting your shot, actually articulating, shooting your shot, like, wow, you look great, whatever it is an act of courage. And those little steps help build the courage that you need in order for you to take whatever step.
Okay. So now all my friends say that I shoot people down too fast, because if you can't open your mouth, even send me a text message that says I want to take you out, I just be like, oh, they ain't about shit, so let me leave them alone. Am I the toxic one? Am I the drama? Am I the drama?
Perhaps. What the question is, why so quick?
Because I truly believe how you do anything is how you do everything. And so if you are pussyfooting around this simple question with somebody who's a stranger in the DMs, then I would just imagine that you pussyfoot around everything.
At what point do you allow?
Am I the drama?
At what point do you allow the person to grow in that and get comfortable in that and to actually exercise that courage? Because you could be the space to reflect that back to them, that they may not even be aware that that's a thing.
So again, okay, this is perfect. My toxic trait has always been turning people into projects. And so if I can and so I think my trauma response, which we'll talk about shortly, is I intentionally weed out people who I think are going to be a project. Like if I identify that quickly, we ain't even going out on a date and I can tell, oh, this is where they need to grow, then I'm like, nope, not for me.
But I think that that could be a gift of yours, right? To just identify someone's like area or potential, if you will, but not to fall in love with it. I think that's the difference. I think can you recognize it and then create the space for them to realize it themselves?
But that to me is I would fall in love with the person, and the person is a project. It's like the person's black, the person's a man, the person's a project. And to me that translates to loving their potential and not who they are right now.
I'm not sure.
Am I right? If I'm wrong,
because I think to your point,
yes, I am.
You have a point. You have a point, and your point is valid. But I think I'll use myself as an example. Projects, codependent, all the things, right? And we can, you making a face, we can go there. It's fine. Codependency is something.
I'm very curious about you using yourself as an example. Go ahead.
Codependency is a thing where it intergenerational, right? No one knew it or named it until I went to school and started like uncovering things, right? So, codependent because my grandfather passed away and then my grandmother just devoted her life to the church and in the community. And so everything was a project. Everything was, we're going to heal, we're going to win, we're going to do these things. And so when it came to relationships and looking at relationships in the family, everything was a project. And I realized I haven't seen a healthy relationship. I don't know what a healthy relationship actually looks like. I've heard stories of my grandparents, but never in my life growing up have I witnessed a healthy relationship. So with that, you fall into codependent relationships. And so realizing my first relationship after that breakup, the reason why we broke up is because what was once healthy, now when I came into awareness, it became toxic. The relationship formed based on trauma bonding and shame bonding and secrecy, right? So once I realized this is not healthy, I then had to break it off. Years later, you grow and you understand, and I'm in therapy and learning these things. Now I'm afraid to put it into practice. Now I'm afraid because now I think I'm going to fall in love with potential. It's going to be another codependent relationship. And so I'm missing out because of fear. So now I have to understand boundaries. I have to understand how to put those boundaries in place to say, I'm not going to send you the job description. I'm not going to drive you everywhere. I'm not going to, do all these things. And those are the boundaries that are put in place. So I don't fall into a codependent relationship. And then when I realize that this is not going to work, I need to end it. Go ahead, because you are dying to say something.
I have so much, but hold on. We got to, because this is a perfect segue to this next one. So last week, Rakai, give me 3 more minutes. But last week, we talked about husband dick. And McQuan said husband dick could be toxic if you don't manage, if you don't acknowledge that your actions, the penetrative partner, can impact another person. And I thought that was a really great analogy for just interpersonal relationships. If I don't take responsibility for the fact that my actions can impact others and make them feel emotional, then that can be toxic, I'd imagine. We'll get to the definition of toxic soon. But we were deluged with comments about how no, bottoms need to just manage their emotions and they ain't shit and all this other shit, right? And my next question is, where is the compassion and the empathy in Black gay culture? Do you sense that we have a lot of that or not?
I'm not. My first thought is, if I don't have it for myself, how am I going to have it for someone else? So often
we are saying we don't have it for ourselves, though.
Oh no, we're very hard on ourselves. We're tough. We're tough in the way. We're tough in the way because it's seen as strength, and it's not. Right? You have your hyper independent people. You have your folks who don't really like themselves, and so they have different masks, which we've talked about before.
Yes.
So to have empathy and compassion for myself, to love myself, is the key. But if I'm navigating and surviving in a room, in a world that I don't like myself, it's hard to show compassion and empathy for someone else.
Can that drift into toxicity?
Absolutely, because I think toxic traits are ultimately a part of the masks in the costumes.
Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Okay, Rakai, thank you for my extra little time. Rakai is the boss. She's the one keeping me on track.
Okay.
Okay, those and all the topics are available at the new dearblackgaymen.com. When we come back, we're going to figure out if Hakim is toxic himself. Has he identified his toxic traits, or is he just better than all of us? Toxic Explained when we return. We'll be right back.
Clap your hands for this amazing opportunity to gather together.
It's almost here.
I Elevate National Conference. We are calling together innovators, creators, creatives, leaders, activists, advocates, disruptors.
A weekend of events, celebration, and fellowship. This is an event you don't want to miss.
July 12th through the 16th.
Visit ielevate.org to register. Welcome back to Dear Black Gay Men Alive. One thing I know for sure, and Hakim alluded to this earlier, niggas is strong. Black gay men have a way of figuring out how to make good of difficult or traumatic situations. I can only imagine. I know that I have some trauma from childhood. People have been put out of their home, all of those things. And somehow we figure out a way to survive. But sometimes we don't have to be so strong if we can identify toxic triggers in ourselves and others a lot sooner. Hakim Asadi is here to help us understand what toxic actually is and how we can steer clear of it in our everyday lives. Hakim, what is toxic, if you had to give it a definition?
First word that comes to my mind is unhealthy. Unhealthy coping skills, unhealthy mask, unhealthy responses. We usually talk about it from the lens of like trauma response or survival techniques. And I don't really care for it being a buzzword, Because a lot of times it's used to point the finger versus look at yourself.
What do you mean?
Anytime we're talking about toxic traits, it's always that person is toxic, or that's a toxic relationship, or that it's always external. Like I'm pointing the finger to say that this person is toxic. The question is, where is that self accountability? And like you said, am I the drama? Am I the toxic one? And so I don't generally hear people talking about it from that lens. I hear it, that person is toxic. Oh, I had to end it because he was toxic or she was toxic.
But isn't it important? Like, it's like, what comes to mind when you say that is it does take one to know one. So like, if I can point out someone is toxic, isn't that a part of it saying that I either have those qualities or have had those qualities, or like?
Not necessarily. You can pinpoint when something, a red flag, it might not be your red flag, but you could pinpoint somebody else's. The question, do you have red flags or do you have some toxic traits? Most likely you do. But where's that conversation? Like, how did I
have that conversation with yourself?
How did I contribute to you really want to go there? How did I contribute?
I do.
So
I'm really curious because, like I have said many times with you and other mental health professionals, oftentimes non-professionals, mental health professionals look at a therapist and be like, oh, they got all their shit figured out. Mm-hmm. And there is this distance between us because I'm fucked up and you're not, because you're the one with the notepad. And so my question really is, like, have you had that all these conversations you're saying are important? Have you had them with yourself?
Absolutely. I think that's the only way I can be good at what I do, is to practice what I preach.
Okay. So what's your toxic red flag?
My red flag is, or my toxic trait, if we're going to use those terms, cutoff game is really strong.
Really?
Absolutely.
So what was all that you was just saying about me and my cutoff game? Because I don't even let you get to the date if you can't, like, man the fuck up.
I think that's you don't even get to the date though.
No, I don't.
Right. I think why not go on the date and then tease it out? Give some space, give some room for the cutoff game. Because I think that's what I was getting to when it came to understanding boundary setting. I think I'm good at boundary setting because of my cutoff game. My cutoff game is the defense mechanism. That's rooted in fear and in shame and worried about being rejected, right? So that part is was easy for me, I should say, to transmute that into boundary setting.
TJ King is in the chat. He said, "Is no time to waste." I'll give you that one. But I'll tell you the reason why I don't, specifically in dating, the reason why I cut people off so easily and don't even get to the date is because if you slide in my DMs, if you are asking for my number, if you are attempting to court me, then you need to be able to go all the way through to legitimately asking for the date and executing it. If I asked for your number, I would say, this is where we gonna meet, this is what we gonna eat, this is what we gonna do, and I will treat you. I don't need somebody to pay for me. I'm not gonna go that far. But you at least gotta be able to, make a date. But if you slide in my DMs talking about, well, what you wanna eat, where you wanna go, what you wanna do, I'm like, I ain't got time for all that bullshit. And I'm like, now that we're having a toxic conversation, in my head, I'm like, again, am I the drama? Is that the reason I'm still single?
I don't know. I think we would have to test that theory, because what if it's centered around your values and you don't want to deviate from that? That makes perfect sense. If it's fear of wasting my time, or it's not, you're assuming something, then I think that's something else to navigate. And a lot of times people miss out on experiences because they're making an assumption, and we really don't know. right? There could have been a number of reasons why someone was, I guess, beating around the bush or whatever it is. It could be they're intimidated by you. And then until they get to know you on the date, they can actually let their walls down. They could be guarded. They could be afraid of getting hurt. There's a number of reasons why, but if these are centered around your values, don't deviate from them. Those are your values. But if it's more of the, we can curse on this, right?
Yes, I've been cussing all the time.
Okay. If it's more of like niggas ain't shit, you're setting yourself up for these walls and these boundaries. And so with walls up, you're not going to experience what you want to experience, and no one actually can. You aren't letting anyone in.
I'm not letting those people in. I'm with you when you're right, but it ain't nobody. It's these particular niggas who actually ain't shit. But James K is the perfect segue. James K asks in the comments, he says, how do you know if someone is toxic or just in a bad season of their life?
It's an excellent question. I think that's a question for them. I don't know. I don't know if we can determine that. I think that's a question that person would have to determine if this is just a trait that I can grow from, or is this a particular season that I'm just not with it. Either way, do you want to entertain it?
That's a good fucking question.
Yeah. Do you have the bandwidth to entertain it? Because it could be a season or it could be a trait. And I think people, and that's the other piece. If you recognize someone's toxic trait or their red flag, where's the room to grow? Is there space? Is there grace for them to actually grow or change? Because they may not be aware of this until they come into your presence and you highlight that this is a challenge. And I think that's the most important piece, that's why we come into relationships. Relationships serve as a mirror to the dark parts of me. These are the toxic traits. I won't know about them until I get into a relationship with someone. Or even not, and it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It could be a friendship. But if I go in with the understanding that this is a reflection, this is a mirror to the blind spots, to the dark spots, to those shadowy parts that I'm not aware of because I be chilling, minding my business, it's an invitation to my growth. But yeah, do you have the bandwidth?
Okay. And so both of those questions seem to be directed at the other person. It might be their bad season and whatnot. How do we turn that reflection on ourselves? What do we ask ourselves to figure out if this is one of our own toxic traits or if we are in a bad season?
Yeah, I think looking at time and patterns in previous relationships and just what's going on in your life, right? Because if it's a season, I think that's what is this? What is that? What is the season of a bad? What is a bad season? Help me understand that.
James K, what is a bad season? You could tell us in the comments. Meanwhile, in the comments, TJ King says that's some therapist shit. And I was like, of course, because he's a therapist. That's his total vibe. But like when I hear season, what in that question or in any, what I hear is just a chapter of one's life. It could be, a couple months, it could be a couple weeks, it could be a couple years, decades, for all I know. But when you are going through something and you identify opportunities for your own growth, or if you haven't even taken the introspection to identify opportunities for your own growth, what are the questions that we ask ourselves to figure out if I'm the drama? Am I the toxic one? Is this my toxic trait or not?
I think taking inventory on the parts of you that you don't like and being honest with yourself and being vulnerable with yourself to really look at them, to explore them. If you're in a relationship and someone is highlighting or showing back to you that you're not communicating well, okay, how do I take inventory on, is this true? Do I not know how to communicate? Maybe I don't. I posted on Instagram a poll just to kind of see what people's toxic traits were. And it was like, when I feel like I'm not understood, I shut down. Okay, what's that about? You have the insight. Okay, what is that about? Where is that coming from? And my cutoff game, if we want to use me as an example, my cutoff game being so strong, it's a learned behavior. My mom, easily. And hers came from growing up where her dad passed away at a young age. My grandfather passed away when my mom was like 8 or 9. And so she had to then become the strong one in the family and fight people and like just a lot of things, right? So that then translated to me as it's okay to cut people off quick. If it's not gelling well, if whatever it is.
If the vibe ain't vibing.
The vibe ain't vibing, it's over. It's a wrap. But did I give myself a chance? Did I give the person a chance? Did I communicate? No. Half the time I didn't. It was communication in my own mind, noticing things, patterns. Okay, that's about it. My favorite line was duly noted.
That's like, I bet.
Got it.
Mine is always, who gonna check me? Who gonna check me? That's the mantra of my life. Who gonna check me? For several reasons, but definitely who gonna check me? All right, Rakai, I'm ready. But I got so many more questions about that. Mm-hmm. But let's go to break. So when we come back, Hakim is gonna help us identify toxic red flags before we get in too deep. Some of the comments are talking about that specifically, but Toxic Explained continues after the break. We'll be right back.
What up, though? The conversations stay lit on Dear Black Gay Men podcast. Hookup, entanglement, situation, relationship, everything from dushing to dating.
A top verb, but I am not a top noun. I am a guru at first dates.
It's new every Wednesday. Subscribe now.
And we're back. This is a new episode of Dear Black Gay Men Live. The easiest way to support what we do here on the channel is to subscribe to the Dear Black Gay Men channel on YouTube. If you're already subscribed, type subscribe in the chat box so I can see who's rocking with the show. If you're not, and you're watching from anywhere else, you can go to youtube.com/@Dear Black Gay Men and subscribe. If you really love us, you'll turn on the notification bell. No matter what, if you are watching this, I need you to thumbs up this video. Thumbs up on YouTube, thumbs up on Facebook, whatever you got to do, because that'll help us find new subscribers, new viewers. Again, type subscribe in the chat box when you're done, and we are about to get back into the show. Hakim.
Yes.
So real quick. I'm going to put this comment up because it's so good. TJ King on YouTube, he says, I think people who are the I know what I want and I'm not settling for an inch less will always be deemed toxic people with 1,001 excuses about who and why they are not in life. So, is knowing what you want a toxic trait?
No, I don't think so. I think that's a healthy trait.
I literally have a whole episode of the podcast dedicated to this particular topic. So why do you call it healthy? Because I disagree.
Do you? I think it's healthy to know what you want. I think if it's based on your values and alignment, I think it is healthy because it's your alignment and knowing where you're going in life helps with making those decisions. Am I going to entertain this? Am I going to go to this environment? Am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? If I know who I am and what I want, I think that is a good thing, a healthy thing. Why do you think it's unhealthy?
I think knowing your values is very healthy. And I think values can lead you to something that you will enjoy. But I think that Black gay men, in my experience at least, have such a finite, super specific definition of what they want that it doesn't allow for the nuance of people. They have this whole relationship plotted out in their head that ain't got no space for me in it. They want, 6 foot, 230, big muscles, masculine with a big dick, a fat ass, hyper versatile, but he gonna beat you up at the end of that. Like whatever they want, right? But that I might be 5 of those 6 things, but they don't have space for me because I'm only 5'10", or they don't have space for me because, I think knowing what you want goes into that toxic level when it gets too specific and you're too married to it.
Yeah. I think the toxic trait there is rigidity.
That's why you're the therapist. Yeah,
I think that's something completely different. If it's based on my values and where I'm going in life, but so often people don't know where they're going in life, and therefore it's a very rigid fantasy. But that doesn't often come to reality because it's based on what? But if it's based on my values and I get to know myself, I get to know what I want, and I get to know where I'm going, then I can make decisions based on that versus this rigid fantasy, like, having that list that you're talking about. No, that's actually, I would agree with you on that in that sense.
See, I knew I wasn't a jackass. Like in my head where you were like, I absolutely think that's a good thing. What played was Monique and Precious. She was like, since she got your degree and every fucking thing. That's literally what I heard in my head. Okay. So how do we identify red flags? What are some ways in which we can identify red flags in ourselves and others?
Pay attention to your triggers. Your triggers.
Okay.
And I think so often we bypass those triggers, and we ignore them or whatever because we don't like sitting with ourselves, and we don't like the emotional experiences that often come with triggers. But I think paying attention to your triggers can help lead to identifying those red flags and things.
Okay. How do we distinguish between a trigger and how do we distinguish between a valid trigger and something that you really just need to get over?
I think exploring the trigger, because your trigger could be your own insecurity, right? And I working with our community, insecurity doesn't always sound good. And we might have talked about this on another episode, but I always reframe it and say feeling less than secure. If I'm in a relationship or if I'm in some type of dating situation and I don't feel secure in it, the question is why? What's coming up? Those are your triggers. And so it could be something for you to work on, or it could be something like, hey, I didn't like when you did this, or hey, I didn't like, whatever it is. So it's taking inventory on the trigger, right? Okay, so is this a me thing? Because I'm current partner, I tell him, yo, I'm tripping. I know I am, but here's what it is. Right? And that gives space for me to process. That gives space for him to process. And then if it's something like a trigger and it's like, yeah, I didn't like when you said that, then that's a different conversation.
I found myself using the I'm tripping in a passive aggressive way. And I was like, so I'll tell you the story. Dude asked me out on a date. He was supposed to take me out on, let's say it was on a Tuesday. And he said he was going to call me Monday so we could discuss it. And so I was like, oh, I'm tripping because my phone totally missed your call, knowing good and goddamn well he ain't called me. And then that motherfucker went along with the lie. He was like, yeah, I know. I don't know why your phone was acting up. And I was like, nigga, don't play me like I'm dumb now. Don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. Gaslight me before we even get to the first fucking date. That's exactly the bullshit that I be talking about.
But you set that up. Why didn't you just say you didn't call me?
Because I wanted to see if the nigga was gonna lie to my face.
So you set it up. So
I mean, I can't help it that the girls is transparent. I can't help that.
I wonder if he would have been transparent had you said you didn't call me. Why didn't you call me? If he would have lied then that's a different conversation. I think that's where the toxic trait is on him.
because it wasn't on me in that situation. I'm just kidding.
Well,
I'm just kidding. I
I was about to
definitely
say-
acknowledge I'm evolved enough to be like, I can be the drama sometimes.
yeah, passive aggressive. That was the sarcasm. It wasn't the.
Now to myself, I definitely identify, oh, you're being passive aggressive. This is not healthy. This is not conducive to your long-term goals with this person, if it exists. So get your shit together. And I did. I checked myself. I paid attention to my triggers. Okay, this question says, is it possible to get a partner to help with your triggers?
Help with your triggers. I would say, again, the partner or the relationships serve as a mirror. I think it's important to have a partner that can hold space with you as you process and not judge you, because so often we get into these relationships and then if I say I'm triggered and I start talking about it from a self-accountable place, the judgment might happen. Now I'm feeling worse.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not actually feeling the space to, or the growth or that empathy that you're talking about, or that compassion that we're talking about. But so often, if I feel like if I say something and you feel attacked, then now you're going to attack me. When really I wasn't attacking you, I was just sharing. And I think that's the issue, because with defense meets defense, it's just an argument. We're fighting. There's no one is communicating.
When defense meets defense, that's big. Somebody said in the chats earlier, they said oftentimes in our culture, when we talk about our feelings, when we talk about our vulnerabilities, things that we're going through, it's seen as weakness and femininity. Now to me, femininity is not a bad thing, but in that context, people take it and have a negative connotation about it. And so that's why I was like, where is the compassion in our culture? Because I like to this person's point, I really believe if you are in a compassionate and empathetic relationship, whether it's a friendship or whatever, then yeah, it's definitely possible. It's plausible. It's probable to be in connection with someone who can help you through your triggers if they give you the space to experience them.
Right.
But I just think in our culture, we don't have space to be anything less than uncheckable, which is checkable in and of itself. Is it not?
Say more.
I only got 45 seconds. Give me a minute, Rakai. I got to unpack this one for us. But I think that when people feel as if they are not checkable, you can't read me, you can't identify anything in me, there is no opportunity for growth. I think that is where you need to be checked.
Sure.
Everybody's shit stank.
Absolutely, yeah.
Everybody. Now, it might not stink the same way as everybody else's, but everybody's shit stank. And if you really believe yours, it smells like roses, then that is your delusions.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, that's what we at. Okay, Rakai, I'm ready. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Hit the notification bell because we're going live.
Like that's the least of my worries. The size.
Oh, I think relationships are becoming more complex.
Tuesday and Thursday every week.
Welcome to Dear Black Gay Men Live
at 9 p.m. Eastern. Subscribe at youtube.com/@Dear Black Gay Men.
Okay. I tell everybody that we are here for a good time, not a long time. It feels like we have so much more to talk about with Hakim, but we are at time. I want to thank you for showing up. You can follow Hakim at Hakim Asadi _ on IG. The link to his socials is in the description. Toxic and triggered, two big words that we've been talking about this whole 39 minutes, are big in our culture. Dick and ass can be toxic. That's what we talked about last week. People can be toxic. Jobs, friends, events, memories, family, parents, all these things can be toxic. They can also be triggering. Our initial reaction to a trigger, I believe, from something toxic is probably to try to get rid of it. friends trigger you and all of a sudden we don't fuck with them. Hakim was talking about his cutoff game is strong. Memories trigger us, so we stuff them down so deep that they can't be found. But the true tea is that toxicity and the trigger are there to help us evolve. That's the sign that there is something unfinished about this thing. And our job, I believe, now I ain't the therapist, but I truly believe that our job in those moments is put our big girl panties on and finish it. So, dear Black gay men, do what needs to be done. That was our show. I am Jay the Gentleman. That's at JAI the Gentleman on IG and Facebook. If this episode made you feel a little more dope, be sure to subscribe on YouTube, like the video, and share it with someone who needs a dopeness reminder. We are new every Wednesday on the Dear Black Gay Men podcast, and you can stream it on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And then Dear Black Gay Men Live is new every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can follow at Dear Black Gay Men on socials so you never miss a thing. I am Jay the Gentleman. This has been Dear Black Gay Men Live, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.